Welcome to the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I'm Morgan, and I'm thrilled to be your host and wellness coach as we navigate the path to a healthier, more confident you. As the owner of Get Fit With Me, I bring years of experience in personal training, nutrition, and coaching to each episode. Join me as we explore practical tips and strategies for fitness, nutrition, mindset, and more, all tailored for busy women just like you. Let's empower your wellness journey and achieve lasting transformation together. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to an episode of the EmpowerHer Wellness podcast. I'm your host and coach, Morgan Ekovich, and I'm excited for today's episode. We're going to be talking about yoga, something that I absolutely love when I go to it, but I'm not the person who signs up to do a class every week or every day. I've got a girlfriend where I swear she goes 4 to 5 times a week. It is like her church. It is the thing she absolutely loves. But I know that when I do sign up for that one class here and there, one, it has to be hot yoga so that even if I lay there, I feel like I'm getting some benefits. But two, it's got to be a class that actually hits my level of what I can do. And it used to be really intimidating to try a class that I've never done. So a few of you have reached out asking of like, who can take yoga? Is there chair yoga? Like, what type of class should I sign up for? I see Bikram, I see restorative, I see candlelight. There's so much out there. Today, we've brought on yoga expert Laurie Matheny to talk about yoga, how it's for everybody. She's a yoga teacher here locally in the Lansing area, and I'm excited to have you here, Laurie. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast and just being part of all of the amazing women that you've already had on here and spoken with. So I'm just honored to kind of share the space with you.
Yay! I'm so excited. So let's start off. Tell us a little bit about how you became a yoga teacher, a wellness guide, kind of where did your story start and how did you get into this work?
Yeah, so yoga kind of came a little bit later in my life than some of my other wellness practices as far as like Reiki, energy work, and herbalism go. I've been practicing yoga on and off since my 20s, just like you. I'd take a class here, take a class there. It sounded like something I wanted to do, but again, like being intimidated, there's studios, just not really sure where to turn. And then actually, like right before COVID, I downloaded this app from a woman in Grand Rapids who had this beginner yoga app. And so I started like this 30-day yoga challenge. And then I was like hooked, just noticing after 30 days of doing like very beginner, fully guided practices on this app. I was just feeling better, like physically and mentally, and just these changes that I wasn't expecting, when I had first
Mm.
started doing this practice every day. And then COVID hit. And so for me, it was really like I already had this yoga that I'd been doing. And so continuing that, just like it was like it came into my moment at that perfect time, like synchronous that I had something when I had lost my job during COVID. And then all of a sudden, there's nothing to do, nowhere to go. And, one of the big things of yoga is that being present in the moment and being present with yourself. So helping me kind of just find some sanity at a time when everything was completely insane. And so I did an online yoga teacher training through my vinyasa practice, and I really liked it. I learned a lot, like a lot of book work, but it was really missing like that in-person
Mm.
component that I needed to just for myself, not even as a teacher. Like, am I doing the pose right? And when I say right, I mean, am I in alignment to where I'm not like hurting my body, that I'm consistently
Mm.
moving in these ways, and that, I'm not straining myself in shoulder problems and stuff like that. So I took my in-person program to a little bit over 2 years ago now at Yoga Connect Lansing, and it completely like transformed my life, my trajectory, what I thought was possible for myself and who I am as a person and how I hold space for others. And so yeah, and now I'm here, 2025 today, teaching yoga and just so grateful to share the things that it's taught me with other people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, how often are you teaching classes? I guess is my first question. Are you teaching like every day? Are you a few times a week? And how does that play into your body when you teach? Are you feeling worn down when you teach more because you're doing the moves, or are you more standing and directing, helping correct individuals who aren't in alignment with their body?
Okay, yeah. So I teach in a lot of different spaces. So how I teach is different from location to location. So I teach at the YMCA. I do chair yoga there, and then like a moderate but beginner friendly, fully guided vinyasa. I move with them on the mat during those classes. So I am practicing with them. It is because I also teach hot yoga, yoga connect lancing, where we don't practice on the mat with our students, but we're more guiding them and I wouldn't say like correcting, but more like we like to call it assisting because we don't want people to feel like they're doing something wrong, because all of our bodies look different, but more assisting somebody to maybe help guide them into a pose where they can feel a different shift in their body that might offer a different experience for them. So where I'm on the mat, I'm always still trying to like look at my students so I can keep cueing to guide where I might see that they might need an extra, like, reach your arm back, open your chest, really trying to have those cues so that they can really start to take that confidence into their own body so they can listen to my voice and be able to find the flow within themselves and not have to like depend so much on if I'm moving with them. But I do love to move with them because yeah, it kind of helps me stay active as well. But yeah, every class, and then I do my own classes too. So that's more of like breath, body, and yeah, so there's all levels that I teach for all sorts of people.
Interesting. And I guess that makes perfect sense that depending on the location you go to, that you may have somebody who's walking around to assist. And you're right. I do like that word better than correct because we are just assisting. We're like, "Hey, let's put your elbow underneath your shoulder. Let's make sure your body mechanics are working together rather than against each other." So,
Yeah.
when somebody's looking at I want to go and I just want to follow along with the instructor who's moving versus like I don't want to be assisted. I want to sit in the back and have nobody talk to me or nobody really look at me. I want to do my own thing. Is there something that they should ask when calling to schedule or when contacting a studio to see what type of classes they offer? Are there questions
Yeah.
that they should look for?
Yeah. So first I will say that I know when you come into a studio, it can be intimidating, but I promise you nobody is looking at you because they're also focused on themselves and probably like you may be worrying that same thing that somebody's going to look at you and you're not going to like look the part, but knowing that when we come to that space, it's really that we're all there, kind of that silent support of each other in our journey, whether our paths have crossed or not, but we're like all in that space for some reason. And whether you're in the front or the back of the room, the spotlight will not be on you. So, again, like with the hot yoga studio, we always encourage beginners to just like look around so that they can kind of follow along with the other students. But some kind of things to ask would be like, again, like calling a studio, what would you recommend as far as a beginner friendly practice goes? I've never tried yoga. Can you recommend a class that would be more slower paced and would like maybe more fully guided? Because some classes are fully guided from start to finish, and other ones,
Mm,
they guide a little bit and then you have some free movement. So I would say at a hot yoga studio, while there are beginner friendly classes, if you are looking for something more hands on, fully guided, somewhere like the YMCA or some
mm.
other studios may have like those non-hot classes and very beginner friendly that where they can offer you, sometimes studios will offer like very beginner, like where to start classes that are, shorter in length and they go through a few poses and they can kind of help you just like feel your body a little bit.
Okay, so calling ahead, asking those questions, because you're right. Each studio, each instructor, even each trainer, when me and other trainers kind of collaborate, like we all have different visions. Yes, we know how a body moves, but like how we help somebody is different.
Yeah, it's like taking the first
So,
step.
y-
It's scary. You just gotta like do it. Or, I mean, I've heard really good things about yoga with Adrian on YouTube.
yes,
So I know a
same.
lot of people who have, if you are intimidated, maybe even just trying a couple of YouTube classes on your own, that might just give you a little bit more confidence that when you do walk into a room, you're just feeling a little bit more confident. But again, like yoga, we are not, I mean, some people do come to practice for the exercise, but really it's for me is giving people that chance to try to quiet their minds and be able to listen to their breath and just bring it within and maybe just start to hear some of those things that are going on inside of you that you're just so busy all the time that you're not really listening to.
So, what do you do for yourself to kind of get yourself and your energy in the right place to walk in and then hold energy for 30 plus people, possibly, depending on the studio that are coming in? Of, I had a great day, I had a terrible day, like all these emotions, all these things. How do you hold the space and kind of get yourself prepped for that?
Yeah, so I do. So I guess going back to your earlier question, I teach yoga like 4 to 5 times a week right now, which is kind of a lot for teaching
Yeah.
yoga. It is, since it's all different, it kind of gives me different, fills my cup in different ways. So for me, it's a very fulfilling experience. And I do try to like ground before every class, whether it's getting outside before I go teach yoga or just doing like a quick like Reiki energy healing on myself, just like a slight short like prayer, or just, finding like that open heart space for myself. I guess I would still consider myself a newer yoga teacher as far as like lineage goes, and people that have taught before me and people that have been in the business for, 20, 30 years. So I do still get like a little bit nervous when I go in to teach a class, even if I've taught it, 100 times before. So also before I go in, just offering myself that moment to take a few breaths and just, again, allow that centering to come back to me so that I can go hold that space for other people, because it's really important when you go into that room that, you're there for other people. You're there to hold that space and to guide other people through their own individual experience. And so your ego and everything else that comes with you is left at the door, because it's not about how I teach a class, it's about how I hold that space and what I can offer those students to have their own individual experiences. So yeah, having like grounding and feeling just very calm in my own body before I walk in, even if I am a little bit nervous, kind of just helps, because as you know, if you're feeling some way, that's going to translate
Mhm.
onto other people.
Absolutely. And I've been in classes where I'm somebody who, I don't have an issue being in the front or the back or the middle, but I don't like the free form, because if you give me like we'll do a sequence, they're like, okay, we're gonna go through that till the song ends. I'm good. I got the rhythm. We did it a few times. Like, that's as much free form. But if you're like, hey, go ahead and do your thing, and I see people doing like headstands and like doing all this really cool stuff, I'm like, corpse pose, child's pose.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going to go right now. I'm like, because I don't even know where to start, because there's so many cool things out there. And so that right there can be a little intimidating, but it can also be really fun and inspiring to be next to that
Yeah.
person who's like, look at that. How long have they been practicing? Is that something that they have a gymnastics background, so it comes a little bit easier for them? Or have they
Yeah.
been working for years? As we, one, there's so many progressions of people in a yoga class. You've got that beginner who maybe can't get into a pose. So, for instance, let's do like one of the warrior poses, because I feel like that's a common one. How can somebody prepare themselves coming in of, I may not be able to perform all these moves, but it is okay. And if I can't perform the move, I should do this, or I should tell myself this. Like, how can somebody prepare themselves when they're up against that hurdle of, I can't do that?
Yeah. So first of all, I guess just speaking to if you do have any injuries, letting the instructor know beforehand. So if there are types of modifications, they can keep a eye out on you to see like if there's somewhere that you might, based on if you have any like injuries or things that could like prevent you from physically being able to move into a pose. But again, as far as like getting into a pose, everybody's different. And so knowing that just because somebody can do a headstand doesn't make them a better yogi or a person who practices yoga, because we are, again, that individuality. And sometimes somebody looks the part, right? They look like they flow on Instagram and they look all great. Well, somebody could just be hypermobile and they could actually be damaging their joints because they're getting into poses because their
Mhm.
body allows them to, but it doesn't mean that it's the most aligned. So when we go into a class, I guess first is like, yay for coming and putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, because that requires a lot of bravery just to attempt that. But also knowing that the pose is meant the way it's meant for your body. So there is no wrong way to do a
Mm.
pose. And, it's just again making sure that you're safe in the alignment of the pose. Not everybody's hips open the same way. And usually one hip is different than the other. So, in Warrior Two, we're really in an open hip space where we have our back foot is like pivoted and planted. And then our front foot is like right in alignment, like our arch is in alignment with our heel. And then that front knee is like kind of pressed open to the side. So we're like really opening our hips, but not everybody's hips can open as much as others. So it's more, again, it's really trying to get past that you have to look a certain way and more bringing it again back into that breath and body and how is it feeling in your body, because how it feels in your body is going to be a lot different than how it's going to feel or look in your neighbor's body.
I love the part about bringing up your injuries to the instructor. I think
Yeah.
that's something that in we forget to bring up and say, "Hey," and speak up because if like, oh, like we're afraid to speak up and say something. But if I probably need to do that honestly because the planking and on my wrists, I end up
Yeah.
modifying in a few different ways. But beforehand, if I say something to the instructor, they may have a different way to modify that may never have heard of. So like that's important to have that two-way conversation and know the instructor's there to support you and it's not just a space that you come into and you leave. There is
Yeah.
connection there.
Yes, as much as you would like. Some people like to come and just leave, and that's fine. Other people like to come and find connection and find, new friends. And so, yeah, the space, I guess, is just whatever you need when you need it. I guess is how I kind of
Mm.
feel. Like some days you need it, that connection, other days you don't want it. Maybe you just had a really hard day and you want to go into a hot yoga class. And speaking to what you said, child's pose and shavasana, like honestly, those are like some of the hardest yoga poses because it's a lot easier for people to come into a class and just work through their energy and not think and just work their body so hard. I mean, we
Mm.
come from Ashtanga lineage, which kind of is like the sequence of poses, and you like work through this whole series, and then at the end, you're just for hours in seated meditation. And that point is kind of you're working your body to that place where you
Mm.
physically are done, and then you can shut your mind down. But for most of us, like coming into a space, if your yoga teacher's like, now we're going to start in seated meditation for 5 minutes, like a lot of people you're inside of your head are like, no, like how I can't, I have to think, which is okay too. Like, that's fine. But the stillness I find is a lot harder for most people than the movement. But it's all yoga.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think for me, I don't know what I do with my brain when I'm in those positions. Like, I think I kind of zone out. Like, my brain just goes to a whole different place, which I think is really awesome that yoga provides that space. And I honestly think exercise in general, whatever form that is,
Hmm.
triggers something else in the brain that just kind of allows us to get out of our head, allows us to work through whatever's there. And that's why it's so important to move our bodies in whatever way it feels best for us.
Yes, definitely.
So let's talk about different types of yoga because I know they're like my boyfriend used to do Bikram. He used to be a Bikram guy back in the day. I've done like a candlelight, which is just they kind of just schedule it for like nighttime. So I don't really know if there's something specific with that or if it's more of a time of the day. Then there's a few others out there. So like what are the most common that people will see and then what are some of the differences between them so they can kind of know well, you're going here, it's typically higher intensity. Versus here, it's a little bit, you're holding your moves a little longer type of thing.
Okay. So I guess I will stick to, because not only are there like different classes you can take, but there's also many different like lineages and styles of yoga versus like we have Ashtanga or Hatha yoga. There's the Bikram yoga. There's like Bhakti yoga, and there's all these various lineages. And again, they all have
Mm.
many similarities. So for me, my lineage or my practice is like that Vinyasa Ashtanga style. So hot Vinyasa, Maggie, Yoga Connect, she kind of got that from Casey at Citizen Yoga in Detroit, which is like that original like Detroit hot Vinyasa, which again
Oh.
stems from the Ashtanga lineage, which is like that very rigorous, like strict set of poses that are all working through different forms of alignment in your body. Kind of one of the things with yoga is like that balance, like we open, we close, we have open hips, we have closed hips, we open our chest, stand up, we fold back in. So it's kind of like bringing
Mm.
things out and then bringing them back in. And so when we think of like flows, we also think of like how are we getting twists in? Do we have a heart opener? Are we counter posing, working out through the different spaces in our body? So let me go back to. So we have like things like hot vinyasa, which I would consider a more advanced class. So if you're looking into hot yoga, hot vinyasa class would be like where you're going to have some mini sequences, a sun salutation A, which is like a very basic yoga flow where you're just like moving through like upward salutes and then back down to the mat, followed by like a plank or your chaturanga, back to your downward facing dog. So you'll have some series of that, and then you'll have another a sun B, and then like that third flow where they just like put poses together, and then you just kind of flow with that. With there's like things in between all of that, so that's more advanced. So that would be always encourage somebody to try it, even if you
Yeah.
go in there. I know my first hot vinyasa class, when I got to, like, I practiced a lot of hot yoga, but this particular hot vinyasa class, when I started my teacher training, was a very popular hot vinyasa class, a very busy one, and not so advanced that like the whole class is doing headstands. But I get in there and I'm with this new group of yoga students, and I'm like, okay, and it's like halfway through the third flow, like everybody's flowing. Think I'm gonna pass out and I have no idea where I'm at. I'm like, okay, like I don't even know what the pose is. Like I thought I knew yoga and I don't. So, I think that we all have to have that experience. So hot vinyasa is like more like lets you go on your own. And then there's things like all levels vinyasa. So an all levels vinyasa would be like fully guided. Like you would still have your sun salutation A and then you do like a sun salutation B, and you would have some free flow in that after they guide you through a couple of rounds, but it's the same, just that very short sequence. But then like when they do the third flow, all the poses would be fully guided for a couple of rounds, and then you would just follow along, like the whole class would kind of do it together, so you're not left to just kind of go on your own and figure it out if you need to. So candlelight classes can go a lot of different ways. They can be more like restorative to where they're very slow and you're just kind of moving through stretches with props and just being more intentional. Some candlelight classes I've seen also as more of a slow burn style. So they're more intense,
Yeah.
but they're candlelight, but you're moving through poses that you're holding for longer periods of time. So, you're going to start feeling like that burn in your muscles. Yin is another kind of form of yoga, but it's along the lines with like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic principles, where you really do about 6 to 8 poses during a 60-minute class, and you hold them for 5 to 6 minutes at a time using props. And again, this is specific poses to help stimulate different meridian points in your body. So yin can be
Mm.
hard for a lot of people because they have to think, they don't get to move a lot and they're like in these poses, but it's really getting into like the deeper fascia and like that more energy into your body. And then you can have like yoga sculpt where you're using weights and bands with it.
Mm.
There's like yoga lattes now. Like we have some like newer forms of yoga where like yoga and Pilates mixed. Some classes like yoga fusion, where again you can have like yoga with working out, kind of mixing like core work and stuff into it. Ashtanga, that's another yoga class. And again, that's just like a series of like probably like the standard primary series, about 60 minutes. It's like a shortened series of what the full series of Ashtanga is. That's really good if you can find a studio. It's harder, but it's meant for like building foundational skills too, because you go through those like very foundational poses like over and over, building that consistency. And then so Bikram yoga, that would be like another lineage, and that's kind of like hot yoga, but nah, it's like it's hot. I think it's a little bit hotter than what we do for hot yoga, and the poses are a little bit different, but it is like a sequence of poses, and
So,
there's lots,
and
like many, many different.
so there's many.
Yeah.
And so I think going back to the first of like call and ask the studio, especially if you're unfamiliar and you're not sure where to start, like ask where you are maybe in your level. Like I'm not a beginner, I'm not advanced. What class would you suggest? Like I did a yoga sculpt class. I strength train. I'm like, I can lift weights. I'm doing great. It is the most like ego hitting class because you walk in there and you're like, I'm gonna grab a set of tens. You go ahead and you walk right back out and you get yourself a set of twos or threes
Right.
midway
Yeah.
through class. And I should have known, but like I was like the first one there, so I didn't ask questions. I was like, "Oh, I'll figure it out. I've got no issues with that." But I'm like, "Nope, this is like when I do a spinning class with weights on my bike." And like
Yeah.
the 3 pound weights make grown men cry. And that's exactly what the yoga sculpt does. So, like, if you are thinking of that, go on the lighter set of weights, is my recommendation.
Yes, definitely. So I just started teaching a yoga sculpt class, and yeah, I'm like optional bands because again, not everybody that comes in, we're not all the same fitness level. And I do show some moves there, but I'm like, I am not putting the bands on. I'll help with the weights, but I also have to teach the class. So I have to, I can't be too tired.
Absolutely. Okay, so chair yoga. So chair yoga, I assume you can have all those styles you talked about for the most part. Maybe not hot chair yoga. I don't think I've ever heard of that. But like chair
I
yoga in
mean,
general, who typically is that for? We'll talk about that and then I want to move into like how often we should do it, who should be doing it. But I wanted to kind of get a baseline of like there's so much out there. So like what is
there
chair yoga
is.
and what does that look like?
And just before, I just want to say there's like a lot of like really wonderful studios like right here in the Lansing area. And there's hot yoga studios and non-hot. So I mean, even when I took my yoga teacher training, they really encourage us to try many different studios because maybe you went to one and didn't have a great experience. But there again, there's just so many, like we have such a wonderful, skilled group community of yoga teachers and studios in this area. So again, if one doesn't seem like it's your vibe, well, there's many more that, there's many ways to find something that could feel more aligned with your vibration or your energy or, what you're seeking out of a yoga practice. Not just the
Yeah.
hot yoga. I guess that's kind of what I promote, but okay, wait. So what was our question now?
So I'm going to go back to what you just said before we jump back to that question. Because you're right. I think, in Lansing have at least 50 plus yoga types of studios or fitness centers that also offer yoga classes. And I love that you said that just because you had a bad experience at one, it's like you going to one bad restaurant and saying you're never going to go to a restaurant again. Like,
Yeah.
go try somewhere new, try a different type of class, try the same place with a different instructor. I use MindBody for a lot of my things
Mm,
just to look up because it's an easy app, but a lot of places will give you 30 days to try for $30 or a free for your first class. Like, go
yeah.
try out and find what works for you. Kind of like a therapist. If you ever start working with a therapist, like you're not committed to the first one. If you
Yeah.
don't drive with them, like say it's okay, it's not a good fit and find someone new. Same with me. Like if the first trainer doesn't work, go find another one. Like it's okay.
Right.
We're not for
Yeah.
everybody. So
Hmm.
thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, chair yoga. So,
So yeah, back to chair yoga.
I mean, I will say that when I teach chair yoga at the Y is generally people 50s plus. I do sometimes get some younger people in there that have had injuries and just don't have the mobility right now. A lot of times, like with knee injuries, people still want to find some movement or practice, but they just have a hard time getting up and down. So in our chair yoga, we also do standing poses. So we do some stuff in the chair, we stand up for a little bit, and then we kind of sit back down. So we kind of follow like a sequence. I mean, not as much as a vinyasa in the class that I teach, but chair yoga can be challenging too. I mean, you can like, if you were to look up chair yoga, like you can do boat pose, you can do challenging poses in a chair that are more advanced too. I mean, a lot of people just think, oh, chair yoga, like but I mean, the people that I see coming, like it's very beneficial. Again, if you have somebody in your life that is older, that struggles with mobility, just like chair yoga again well, I guess the way I teach it, I'm speaking just to my own experience, but first is the breath with the body. First, we're working to just be able to drop into our body, just allow ourselves to relax the shoulders. Notice, wow, my jaw is clenched. Like I didn't even notice, like I'm like this and I'm carrying all this weight. So, like for me, it's that first thing is like, how can we just start to breathe and notice? And then twisting, stretching, opening our hips. I do like to, in my chair yoga class, when we do standing, I always try to encourage them with a balance pose, whether they're holding onto the chair or not, or to a wall, because again, sometimes balance. What I hear a lot of people say is, I'm no good at balancing. I can't balance. And I always say sometimes it's if things are happening in your life, you might see that kind of equate to
Mm.
maybe not feeling so balanced on your mat also. And sometimes it's just like a balance thing or shutting your mind down a little bit and being able to bring that focus within to where you can kind of hold that still space. And a lot of core work. I always remind people lift up on your pelvic floor, pull in your core, and make that a big ball of energy right there in your midsection. Because if you're in tree pose and you're standing on one leg, when you get nice and tall and you're squeezing everything in, you're giving yourself like that. And anybody can do that, whether you're sitting, whether you're standing, just like those, again, those key reminders that we don't think about. And as instructors, we might feel like we're saying it a lot in the class, but to the
Right.
student, they're hearing that like, oh, this is my reminder. Drop my shoulders, open my chest, take a breath, squeeze my core. But yeah, chair
And
yoga can be for everybody.
so chair yoga can be for everybody. And you talked about balance. And now I kind of want to move into the benefits of yoga because
Okay.
balance in general, I know I make my strength clients like we're doing a summer strength training boot camp right now, and we
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
end with balance. Like balance is so important whether you are 16, you're 30, or you're 89, my client I still work with. Like we practice
Hmm.
balance because it's natural for us to lose it through age if we're not
Hmm.
practicing. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So, balance is definitely a benefit from yoga. But what are some other benefits that people see physically, mentally, maybe emotionally by doing a yoga class every once in a while or just doing yoga on a regular basis?
Yeah. So, just like practical benefits of doing yoga, if somebody was going to say, I'm going to start yoga coming into the studio a few times a week, you'll just notice those physical changes. Maybe a couple inches can drop off. I mean, I'm not saying like you're going to become all ripped and buff from practicing yoga, just moving your body physically. You'll probably notice I do find sometimes that when I'm very consistent in my yoga practice, my eating habits are also much better
Mm.
because it makes me a lot more mindful, especially if I'm going to a hot yoga class, because really you don't want to eat a bunch of food before you go. And then when you get done, you're often feeling a lot lighter and not wanting to fill your body with like that more processed, like heavy stuff because you just went through that whole like cathartic process of being in the class. Other physical benefits just it could be like lowering your blood pressure, and that can be
Mm.
from, again, that consistent space. I mean, yoga, like a lot of people again start yoga because they're like, oh, I want a good workout. I'm going to move my body. For me, it was more the opposite where like, the poses are there, but it was more like a way, the philosophy of it, and also just like that mind body aspect, like dropping in. So I think for mentally, it just like the more that you're practicing because you're with your body. So especially like if
Mm.
as a woman, we can tend to have these relationships with ourself and our body that are not so great and not so positive. And we often are telling ourselves, cellulite on my thighs. Oh, I missed a spot when I shaved. Oh, like all these things, arms. I don't know. You can think of, I'm sure in your head, you're probably thinking of like a million things about like that we can tell ourselves. But again, when you go into that yoga space and you're starting to build like that resilience. So the first time you come to class, it's like, oh, that was hard or that sucked, but you made it through and that felt good. Now you come to another class and now you've done it twice and it was hard and maybe it didn't suck as much. Maybe like you were able to drop in a little bit more. And now you have your 10th time that you came to a class. And hey, now the moves are feeling a little more familiar to where I can feel like I can explore, and as time goes on, maybe then you notice that now I'm moving through the poses and I'm feeling like a warrior. I'm feeling badass, right? Like
You can say
I
it.
okay, like you're just feeling like a queen or whatever. Like, you're like, damn, like I just did that hard ass yoga class. And I feel like, a month ago, I couldn't even have done that. But also, it's like that mental space to where now you're able to drop in. So now, like, I am focusing on my breath. And instead of tuning out or doing all these other things, like I'm bringing it right back. I can hear what my inner body is telling me, like all these parts of me that don't get a chance to speak in my normal day and building again that resiliency not only with your body, your mind, the way that you feel about yourself, but like you're always coming right back home to yourself in a practice. And then one day you're out in the world and you realize that somebody just like cut you off and they pissed you off, or somebody said something that really just made you want to like snap,
Mhm.
but then something happens and you didn't even realize it. And it's that shift in your mind to where you gave yourself a second and you paused. Like with yoga, it's really like practicing the pause. Like you learn that from that compassion and that grace that you start to build with yourself on the mat, giving yourself that time to pause in a pose, breathe, like, what am I feeling? Are my thoughts even real? Because sometimes you can go on tangents when you're in your in your yoga flow too. But so physically we're feeling better. We're moving our lymph, as with anything, like especially hot yoga, but any type of yoga, you're really like stimulating your lymph, you're moving through your body. And then also mentally is just again that space that it gives you to connect with yourself, trust yourself, and like again, just work on building a relationship with yourself that's filled with like that compassion and that love and that forgiveness. And it's like off story, but a few weeks ago I was in this hot vinyasa class, which for me I would consider like I'm just like a normal yogi. I can kind of do a crow pose and like I work on handstands once in a while, but really I'm pretty foundational in my yoga practice. And and I love classes that do kind of push me to want to try, because even me, like if I'm in a room with a bunch of people doing handstands, I might not even want to attempt. I will, but I might be like, can't even get my legs up. Like, I get that. But this one particular class that I go to once a week, it was like, it's a harder hot vinyasa. I would say it's a beginner. You could go there as a beginner, but also it can be more advanced. And I just remember like 25 minutes into the flow, I'm in this pose and I was thinking how hot I was and I was pretty tired. And I was like thinking like how like yoga makes you feel awesome. Like I can do, like feel like I might die. I'm in this pose, I'm holding it, I'm in my body and like I can do hard things. Like I can do this and I feel so empowered, right? I'm just like, yes. And then like so we skip forward to the end of the class. We're like in our last flow. It's so hot. And then I'm like, I think I might throw up. I might be too hot. Like it just happens every once in a while. And like, I'm like, I think I need to lay down. So now it's like at the end of the third flow. And it's a busy class, but I don't even care. I'm like, I might throw up. I'm laying down. I'm like, just lay it on the mat. I'm like, okay, breathe through it. And I hear the instructor now putting them all through a log, which the log is like the hard thing at the end of practice. Now you're all tired. And now she's like, plank to side plank, do squats or whatever, and I'm just like on the mat, like, okay, I just don't want to throw up in class. And then I was thinking how funny it was back to the beginning class where I'm like, I can do everything. But again, it's that yoga meets you where you're at. Sometimes you're like, I'm strong and empowered. Other times you're like, recognizing that I may have pushed myself a little too hard. So next time when I come to this class, I'm going to start maybe pace myself. I don't need to go as fast as the person next to me, or noticing when if I am moving and I feel like I'm in a groove, but is my body like also jiving with what my mind's feeling? So
I love that because you're right. I think we honestly have that. I have that when I walk. Sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I don't even want to go out and walk." But then you get going and you're like, wow, I feel so great. And
yeah.
then you get a little too far out and you're like, what did I do? I have way too, like, I think we naturally go through those stages, whether it's strength, yoga, those practices, we're coming up against something. And it's okay to come up against something and be like, yep, I took it a little too hard out of the gate. I
Yeah.
feel great. And now I don't. I know exactly that feeling you're talking about. You just
Yeah.
kind of get
Yeah.
there and you're like, yep, okay, we're just going to lay down here for a little bit. We're just going to take a few breaths.
Yep. Yep. That's okay too. It's all part of the journey.
I love it. Okay, so we covered types of yoga. We covered what the benefits and the things we get out of yoga. We covered that yoga really is for anybody. The one thing that I want to I think I know the answer, but I want to kind of hear your opinion because you're the expert, is from somebody who, like, such as myself, who goes like once per quarter versus somebody like yourself who goes multiple times a week. Am I still getting those benefits by only going every once in a while? Because I think sometimes we psych ourselves up of like, if I can't be consistent, it's not even worth doing it. Is that true? Or is that just a random myth and our brain is tricking us into like, if you only go once a year, go to yoga once a year? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's with anything. And, consistency, we all go through phases. whether it's working out, food. I mean, I'm going to say that most of us are not always consistently. I mean, okay, so there is an elite percentage of people who are very motivated and very dedicated and just do the work every day, and good for them. But I would
Hmm.
say for most of us, we're going to go through ebb and flow to where,
Hmm.
even for me, like my yoga practice. So something as far as like yoga in itself goes is from our lineage, like we are like on the eight-limbed path of yoga. So for yoga, asana would be like the movement portion of yoga. And then we have like these other aspects, things like breath work, things like self-study, things like service to others, things that we have within this whole like encompassing of the word yoga. So again, and we use yoga interchangeably just to mean like a yoga class, flowing, moving, So for me, maybe that makes me feel better, like if I'm not practicing physically as much too, but I do find that yoga in my life too. So yoga might not show up on a day as a physical practice. Maybe I'm very tired and that physical part is just too much. Or, maybe I had a hard workout the day before. So maybe my yoga that day is reading a book, learning, doing some self
Hmm.
study, some reflection, being out in my garden, hiking in nature, meditating, sitting in silence, sitting. That's yoga. So I will say, like, the more you practice yoga, like, the more consistent you are, obviously, with any type of
Hmm.
thing that, you're implementing in your life, you're going to see more benefits. But maybe yoga is just like something that you just like go to once in a while, and that's fine too. Again, yoga is there for you when you need it, and maybe it's not your path, also, yoga might, for me, it's like I want people to find something that they're going to resonate with so they do continue down the path. Or maybe yoga is not your path right now, but maybe it will be in the future. The way life works and the way timing is, sometimes we want to do things, but we're not like quite there yet
Hmm.
in a sense. But yeah, I mean, whether you're moving your body, practicing yoga, mindfulness, if you're doing it once a week or once a month, I mean, I would encourage you to try to, at least do it once a week. But yeah, again, yoga just, it's there for you. It meets you where you're at. So it's up
I
to
love
you to
that.
kind of,
And I like that because we had Tamara Glenn on a few episodes ago to talk
yeah,
about
I love her.
meditation.
Hmm.
And we talked about just how 5 minutes of meditation a day can have great impacts. And like it's so small. So I have a feeling there's a way we can. I know Yoga with Adriene has like 5 to like 90 minute. Like we
Yeah,
can
you
do
don't have to
yoga.
do hour practices. Yeah,
So like
definitely.
even just practicing, finding a move or two that you're like, every day I'm going to practice this move. Like practicing something like that could also be a way to get it in, become consistent, allow yourself to be stronger when you do show up to those longer classes. And like
Yeah,
you said, I like the that yoga is not just that class we go to. And I didn't know that. So that yoga is also all these other things around us. So even when you
yeah.
don't physically go do the practice, you're still getting it in.
Yeah, definitely. Early morning stretching, like I always, especially with my chair yoga people, I show them things that they can do right in their bed, where you're just like kind of stretching and adding that mindful component. So it's not just the stretching, it's kind of the breathing. Sun salutation A's again are really great because they can build strength and they're very, very consistent, and the kind of the flow that they are placed in is really meant to kind of like reawaken and energize your body. Like,
So
guess I
I
should have demonstrated that, but that's okay.
no, you're good because this is going to be perfect because you teach at so many different places throughout Lansing. Can you give us a little bit of insight into kind of the places that you teach or how people can find all your information? Because I know sometimes when we teach in multiple places, it's hard. So, like, how can people find you? Figure out, say, I want to go take a class from her or work with you and any of your other stuff as well. Like, what's the best way for people to contact you? Because
Yeah.
I love having guests on, especially local, so that the local people listening can actually go and visit you guys in person, which I think is so fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you can just find me, Laurie Matheny, on my Facebook or on Instagram. Manifest in Motion is my business page for yoga. So you can probably just Google that on Facebook, on Instagram. It's manifest underscore in motion for Instagram. I teach at the YMCA on Mondays. I teach at Yoga Connect, Yoga Sculpt at 4:30 for the summer on Tuesdays right now, which is just a 45-minute class. And Yoga Connect Lansing also has showers, which is nice. So if you want to go take a class and then go out to dinner with your friends after, it's a great like class to go to. Still early in the evening. And then Wednesday evening in Grand Ledge at Lighthouse Massage and Yoga, I do refresh and restore candlelight yoga. So it's just really restorative. It's just a great place for people to drop into their bodies. So it's fully guided. We really don't even, I mean, we get into like tabletop pose, but we don't stand or anything. Most of it's either on our backs, on our bottoms, or on our bellies. So really, we're just stretching, moving. Again, it's really connecting to our breath and just giving people that like place to breathe and feel good about themselves. So I do offer like other things. So I'll have some new yoga offerings coming out in Grand Ledge, some chair yoga here at Tap House Boutique, where I rent my space from. I do Reiki, herbalism. I host women's groups, and then my connected wellness business is my social media marketing for wellness entrepreneurs. So bridging everything into one. But yeah, just finding me on Laurie Matheny or Manifest in Motion on Instagram or Facebook. It's awesome.
Perfect. We will put all those links in the show notes. So for those of you who are listening, go check there. I want to come out to Grand Ledge and do the restorative candlelight
Yeah,
because
you
that
should.
sound, the fact that I don't have to get up off the ground sounds amazing because it's
Yeah,
just like,
it's
yeah. So I'm going to be checking out your schedule to try to make it out to that one sometime in the next month is my goal.
oh, that's right, because you do your Wednesday nights
I
too.
do. I
I
know.
know, because I
So
saw your class. I'm like, oh,
I know, and they want me to continue this fall.
that's
So,
good. Yay.
which is great, but now I'm gonna have to find a different time to make it out to see you because I want to take that class. So we may have to make a road trip out there as a group. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's
Um,
awesome. And I will say, like, I've been teaching that class for about like over a year now, and I have a handful of regulars, but like many of these women have like never even done yoga before they came. And I'm really impressed that like people come every week. And again, people fall, they don't come for a few weeks and they come back. And that's perfect because I do care if you go to yoga, but again, I want you, it's meets you where you're at. So if you come once and then I don't see you for a month or I don't see you ever again, that's fine too. Like when you're ready for it, it'll be there.
Awesome. So, last little thing here. So, one thing that I like to do at the end of every podcast is kind of get a one last takeaway. Is there something that you haven't shared that you really wanted to share with the listeners? Or is there something actionable that they should walk away and say, you learned a lot today. I want you to go do this, though, or I want you to take away this from everything you heard? Do you have any insight on any of those types? I kind of give a few different variations to ask because everybody's got something different that pops into their head.
Yeah, I guess just that takeaway is that not to be intimidated if yoga interests you, that you hold everything that you need right inside of you. And yoga really gives you that place to explore, again, to peel off those layers of life that have been weighing you down, that are causing you to feel stressed out. And so giving yourself the space and knowing that, again, you are the ultimate maker of your reality.
I think that's
Well,
awesome. You are in charge of your life and finding something that brings you energy but allows you to connect to yourself is important.
yes. So maybe go out and get a walk in or something that fills you up. Like bring yourself some joy. There you go. Do something that makes you smile today.
I love it. So, as we wrap up today, I wanted to remind you guys that our summer strength training boot camp is going for a few more weeks. That is Wednesdays from 5:30 to 6:15 at Acme Home Exteriors. You can drop in for $19. You just got to show up. If you've never been before, show up a few minutes beforehand so you can get yourself set up and we can meet in person if we haven't met before. And then it has been requested that I do a fall session. Information on fall session will be in the show notes. Make sure to check that so you've got all the links you need to get signed up if you choose you want to add some strength in this fall. So, Laurie, thank you so much for joining us today and being our yoga expert, helping people feel comfortable in trying something new in something where there is a lot of advanced people out there, but there are also a lot of beginners in helping us learn that yoga will be there for us when we are ready.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much
Awesome.
for having me. This was amazing. It was great to connect with you, and I'm super excited that you're offering a new session.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. For everybody else who's still here, remember, tune in next Thursday for another new episode of the Empower Her Wellness podcast. We'll see you then. Thank you for tuning in to the Empower Her Wellness podcast. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and packed with actionable tips. Remember, your journey to becoming the strongest, most confident version of yourself is just beginning. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and join our community of empowered women. Until next time, stay strong and stay confident.